Good day to all of you. Today, we will be working on the 63rd creation in our lesson series. First, click on the plus mark at the top of the screen and open a new tab. Next, type thunkable.com in the address bar and click the enter button. Now you have entered the Thunkable website. Click on the login button at the top corner of the screen and log in to your Thunkable account. Now again, click on the plus mark at the top corner of the screen, open another tab and visit the dpcode.lk website. Click on lesson number 301. Click the Start Project button here. Now you have entered the project. Today, we are going to create a space weight calculator app using the Thunkable website. Have you weighed yourself recently? Does the value not change even if you go to the moon and check your weight? Did you know that the weight of anything takes different values on different planets? For example, suppose the weight of a man on Earth is 60 kilograms. The weight of this man on Moon is 1/6 of that. That means the weight is mentioned as 10 kilograms. The reason for that is that gravity takes different values on each planet. So today, we are going to create a weight calculator so that when you enter your weight, it will calculate the weight on some other planets. First, let's design the app as required. I will add a label to screen 1. This way, let's drag a label shown under User Interface in Add Components into the screen. I will select this label and click on the Rename button in front of Label 1 in Label Properties section and rename this label as Label Title. I will type the label title here. The text of the label is typed as Space Weight Calculator. Let's give the font size as 35. Select white color as the font color. Text should be aligned center. Okay, next, you need to add a column below the label in the screen. Let's drag a column from Layout in Add Components into the screen like this. Okay, a column got added as column 1, but this column has got added above the label. From the box showing the components, let's drag the column below the label. We will now select this column and rename it as Column Title. Click the Rename button here and type Column Title. Next, select relative size for the height of the column and give the value as 25%. Let's give the vertical alignment as Space Around. Okay, now let's add a button, a text input and a label to this column. I will drag a button from the user interface of Add Components into this column. After selecting this button, click Rename button in Properties and rename it as Button Calculate. Let's give the text as Calculate. Give the font size as 18 and select white color for the font color. Click the box below the background color and give the code related to the color as FC735D. Next, I will drag a text input under User Interface in Add Components into this column. The text input got added above the button. Select the text input and from Properties, rename this text input as Text Input Weight. The hint is already reflecting as type here. Okay, next is to add a label. I will drag a label from User Interface in Add Components into the column like this. Now I will select this label and click the Rename button in Properties and rename it as Enter Weight. Next, for the text here, give Enter Weight in kg below. Let's give the font size as 18 and select white color for the font color from here. Next, add another column below this column. Let's drag a column from Layout in Add Components into the screen like this. Okay, another column got added as column 2, but the column got added at the top of the screen. Let's drag column 2 below column 1 like this. Before that, I will minimize this column. Now, you can drag the column down like this. Let's give the vertical alignment of this column as Space Around. Okay, next, let's add 5 labels to this column. I will drag a label from User Interface in Add Components like this. Add another label in this way again. Okay, now let's add one more label. Now 3 labels got added. Once again, drag a label under User Interface of Add Components like this. Let's add one more. Okay, now select the label at the top and rename it as Label Mercury. Leave the text here as blank. Give the font color as white. Next, let's go to the second label. Now click the Rename button and rename it as Label Venus. Remove the text here. Give the font color as white. Next is the third label. Let's select this label and rename it as Label Mass. Leave the text here as blank. Give the font color as white. Next, select the fourth label. Now click the Rename button and rename this as Label Jupiter. Remove the text here and give the font color as white. Now we have the final label. I will select this label and rename it as Label Saturn. Remove the text like in the previous labels and select white color as the font color. I think it would be better if these empty labels were hidden at the beginning. So let's select this column 2 and make visible as false in properties. Okay, we have now finished designing this app completely. Next is to create the code. Before that, let's see what happens in this code. When we give a value in the text input and click the Calculate button here, the column that we hid should become visible, and according to the value that we input, the weight on Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn should display on corresponding labels. So let's go to the Blocks tab and create the code. First, when we press the button Calculate, column 2 needs to be visible. For that, I will drag the When button Calculate click code block from button Calculate. After selecting column 2, let's drag Set column 2's visible code block into the When button Calculate click code block. Click on the arrow here and select True. Now let's calculate the weight on Mercury and create the code to display that value in the label Mercury. I will drag the Set Label Mercury's text to code block from Label Mercury here. I think that instead of displaying this value as a number, it would be better if we display along with the part that says your weight on Mercury is. So let's link a join code block in text here. The text calculation and the unit need space in this join code block. But here only 2 code blocks are connected to the join code block. Let's make room to connect another code block. For that, click on the settings icon in front of join and drag the item code block on the left side of the box between the 2 item code blocks on the right side like this. Okay, now click the settings icon again. Now you can see that the join code block is prepared as we require. I will remove the word hello here and type your weight on Mercury is. Remove the word world and let's type kg here. Next, we need to calculate the weight on Mercury here. It has been found that the weight of an object on Mercury is 0.37 times its weight on Earth. From that, we can calculate the weight. For that, let's connect a code block with a multiplication sign in math to this empty space. Connect a text input weights text code block under text input weight to the left side of the multiplication sign. Let's give 0.37 for the right side. Okay, now we have finished creating the code to calculate the display weight in kilograms on Mercury. Next, we have to calculate the weight on Venus. The weight of an object on Venus is 0.9 times that of Earth. For this, instead of creating a new code block, we can easily duplicate the same code block created to calculate the weight on Mercury and change the necessary paths. For that, I right-click on the Set Label Mercury's text to code block and give Duplicate. Let's connect the duplicated code block to the bottom of the Set Label Mercury's text to code block like this. Now we can change the required items. Click on the arrow in front of Label Mercury and select Label Venus. Next, let's change the text connected to the join code block as your weight on Venus is type 0.9 instead of 0.37 in the calculation here. Okay, next, let's calculate the weight on Mars and display it in the Mars label. For that, as before, duplicate the code block created for Mercury and drag it here. Click on the arrow in front of Label Mercury and select Mars. Next, change the text here as the weight on Mars is 0.37 times the weight on Earth. Therefore, there is no need to change this calculation. The next is to calculate the weight on Jupiter. The weight of an object on Jupiter is 2.52 times the weight on Earth. For this, let's duplicate the same code block created to calculate the weight on Mercury. For that, I will right-click on the Set Label Mercury's text to code block and give Duplicate. Let's connect the duplicated code block to the bottom of the Set Label Mars text to code block like this. this. Now we can change the required details. Click on the arrow in front of label Mercury and select label Jupiter. Next, let's change the text linked to the join code block. As your weight on Jupiter is, type 2.52 instead of 0.37 in the calculation here. Finally, we will calculate the weight on Saturn and display it in the label Saturn. For that, as before, duplicate the code block created for Mercury and drag it here. Click on the arrow in front of label Mercury and select label Saturn. Next, change the text here as your weight on Saturn is, the weight on Saturn is 1.06 times the weight on Earth. So type 1.06 instead of 0.37 for the calculation here. Okay, now we have completed the creation for the Space Calculator app. You can test this app. After giving your weight here and clicking the calculate button, the weight will be displayed like this on different planets. You little ones are very successful if you made it in this way. WhatsApp your design to me on the phone number Note 7681252244. Tell your friends about the design as well. Check out this app to send to me as well as to your friends. And one more thing, join the DP Coding School Telegram group. Try to be the DP Code Champ Best of the Week once every week. Stay connected with us. Also, another thing, join our DP Coding Club, and now you can start a DP Coding Club in your school as well. We are ready to give you all the guidance for that. If you are interested in starting a DP Coding Club in any school where computer labs are available, make a request to the principal of your school to the email address info@dpcc.lk. Okay, let's meet with another interesting lesson through DP Coding School. Have a nice day.